it's time for another tea talk. I am sitting here with my iced tea today because it is really warm. And I want to talk about a topic that I'm really excited to share, which is decolonizing therapy. So, my intention is just to give a brief little bit of information and thoughts on this topic, and knowing that I could talk about this for a very long time, and maybe I will someday, but today I want to talk about why therapists should care and why it's important for clients that are interested in therapy to know about this topic and how it might actually impact them in their healing process. So let's get started. Okay, so decolonization is definitely a buzzword that I hear like everywhere I turn. And I love that it's getting more visibility, but also wanting to slow down and name that it's not something that can be interchangeable with social justice or equity, which are, and other related words, which are all really important topics in and of themselves. But decolonizing is a very active process. So in order to decolonize, let's talk about colonization. So it's really helpful for me to think about extractive colonialism and settler colonialism. Extractive colonialism is like when the British colonized India and then left. And there are so many ripple effects of just that experience that affect the culture, the way, the lifestyle, migration history, etc. So that's really important to acknowledge that even though the British have left, there's lots of impacts that still exist today. I'm more focused on settler colonialism in this moment because this is where I practice. I practice in California. I'm a California-based therapist, and I'm on occupied land here. So settler colonialism is where colonizers came and never left and have basically settled, erasing and wiping out native folks, native culture, native practices, even making them illegal to practice. And for other folks, other immigrants like myself of various cultural backgrounds and identities, our lifestyles and beliefs are very othered, made invisible, or seen as less valid or discredited. And it's this separation, this experience of being separated from these practices and these lifestyles that's actually very painful and can be very harming. So decolonizing is when we're really investigating this. We're really looking into how has colonization impacted my mind, my beliefs, my values, my cultures, my thinking, my body, what I eat, what I don't eat, whatever. And also thinking about, for as a therapist, how has colonization impacted the way we approach healing and mental health? How do we conceptualize mental health and well-being, and how is that situated or not situated in kind of very colonial Western mindset? So a little bit about that. A lot of our approaches, therapeutic approaches, are very Western European based and really built off of what we call weird research, which is Western educated, industrialized, rich, democratic. And so it's this idea where if all our understanding and research for this field is really kind of narrow, if you think globally, is very kind of narrow, how do we know that it's actually super helpful for all people, right? So for me, as a therapist, it means decentering Western European practices. So for me, I don't use cognitive behavioral therapy or things like dialectical behavioral therapy because I'm choosing to decenter these practices. And I'm actually a cognitive psychologist, separate degree. So it's not that I don't believe in understanding cognition and behavior and how that impacts mental health, but this is not the way I choose to do it. And so I like to use practices that are more diverse, more expansive, and can hold a lot. So Buddhist psychology, mindfulness, for example, but also the practices that I learn that are created um, in these kind of Western field and space. I learned specifically only practices that have some level of openness that can be used and used very much, like losing my words here, can be used very much and aligned with other ways of beliefs, lifestyles, culturals, and healing practices. So, for example, I use a lot of narrative therapy in my practice, and it's this idea that stories can impact our mental health. Those stories that we internalize, and how we make sense of the world, very powerful. But what I do is I also really sit with the fact that this is not new wisdom. This kind of wisdom that stories are impactful have been present in so many cultures and in so many healing spaces. And so it's important for me to learn from others that are identifying this, investigating this, and applying this. Similarly, I'm really into holistic or integrative approaches because I really do believe in challenging this idea of dualism or separating mind and body, which we know that there's a lot of new research pushing back on that. So one of the approaches I'm learning about is interpersonal neurobiology, which is created very much from a Western kind of location. But the person or the people that I discuss with, learn from, digest this information from, are taking a very decolonial approach and connecting this back to wisdoms that have existed across many different cultures and many different spaces. And that is really, really important. So for me, I tend to be more holistic, integrative, and focused on deep healing, and not just really getting you back to baseline and like treating the illness as a very Western approach. But I'm really interested in more of a deep, transformative type healing. Sometimes we need to get you back to baseline, and that makes sense. But I also think healing is so much broader and deeper than that. So hopefully this was interesting and gives you something to think about. And more next time.